good morning and welcome everyone. Don't pay attention to this clock, it's slow. The one in the back is right for those of you that are in here. My name is Tracy Irby and I'm the director here at the Center for Women Entrepreneurs. We are part of the larger Jane Nelson Institute for Women's Leadership here at TWU. And the focus is to prepare more women to take on successful roles in business and public service. It's 3 specialized centers: our center, the Center for Student Leadership, and the Center for Women in Government, ensure women have the education to establish careers as successful executives, the skills for building entrepreneurial businesses, and the framework needed to run for public office. Our center was funded in 2015 by the state legislature just to help promote women entrepreneurs anywhere in the state of Texas. You don't have to be affiliated with the university system to take advantage of the services that we offer. I want to introduce our staff to you. So you know, Donna Lisa here is our associate director. So she also handles all of this up here, our online. We have Kimberly Nielsen online. She is our statewide program manager. Christina Mortel is online. She is our small business advisor. And we have Barbara Ranke. She is online and she is also monitoring Facebook for us. So we're going to go around and introduce ourselves in here. So this is where she said, if you want to speak up a little. And all of you that are online, if you put your information in the chat as well, we do send the chat and everything out afterwards, so all of you in here can see who's online as well. So we're going to go around the room in here, and guess who I'm going to start with? She's not even looking at me. If you want to say your name and your business.
Hi, I'm Landry, and I am with Loving Love LLC. So I am an event planner.
And it's her first time, so welcome. We're so glad to have you here.
I'm Jessica. I'm the co-owner of Beautiful Attitude Design. My friend and I, we make digital designs, cat-related stuff because we're cat lovers.
I'm Jordan Randall. I'm the co-owner of Beautiful Attitude. As she said, we do apparel with cat designs and such. And then I'm also the full owner of Queen Jar Art, which is a clay art studio.
Morning, I'm Heather Walker. I own Bright Smiles by Heather. It's a studio here on the square where I do teeth whitening in a private setting, but at an affordable price.
Hi, I'm Lauren Egan. I'm with Farmers Insurance. I help with all things insurance, but really focus on commercial.
Hi, my name is Gisela, and I own an event planner. I host mobile succulent terrarium building for team building, and I'm mobile. I don't have a cell phone, so I travel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Holloway. I'm an occupational therapist, and like Giselle, I'm a mobile outpatient provider of fall prevention services for the aging adults, 65 and older.
Good morning. My name is Dorota and Mularczyk, and I teach women financial literacy.
Good morning. My name is Kimberly Alvarez. I just finished a master's degree here and interested in doing a biotech startup. I've been in the field for about 30 years, so just trying to figure out how to do that.
Oh, I'm Jessica DeLeon, and later this year I plan to launch Soloist. It's a website for single women to navigate life.
Hi, good morning. I'm Wanda Lise Turner. I'm an associate director here with the Center for Women in Government. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I'm founder and owner of Movology Physical Therapy and Wellness that provide concierge orthopedic physical therapy services.
Good morning. I'm Hannah McGinty. I'm the executive director for Heart Media. We use promo videos, system of LPS.
Hi, I'm Shakita Owens. I'm the owner of Wellness Counseling. My focus is on gut and brain health. And I also recently founded Shakita Owens Global Consulting LLC, where I am focusing on speaking and sharing information on mental health and the gut connection.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. We're so glad to have everyone here. All right, we're going to go ahead and introduce our speaker for today. MiShon Landry, CDP, is a certified diversity professional and CEO of the Inclusive Leadership Institute and Culture Consultants located in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Culture Consultants is a strategic firm and the consulting arm of Inclusive Leadership Institute, which is designed to bridge the ever-increasing gap between inclusion and leadership. As CEO, MiShon is a diversity champion with over a decade of people, program, project management, and entrepreneurial expertise. Named as one of the 2019 Great Women of Texas, Women of Influence for her accomplishments in business, civic, and community. MiShon is also faith and family oriented. MiShon specializes in the following subject matter: consulting, leadership development, and training, cultural competency, DE&I for the boardroom and executive leadership, implicit and explicit bias, imposter syndrome, inclusive and equitable leadership, negotiation strategies for women, secrets to success, and seat at the table, empowering women. Sean, we're so glad to have you here with us today.
Got to get up to unmute. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here as well. So thank you for inviting me and for having me today. Glad to be a part. So I'm going to start sharing my screen if it's okay. And yeah, 1 second. Everyone seeing okay?
Yeah.
No, it's a black screen, MiShon.
Okay, we're going to stop sharing. And we're going to try again. Give me 1 sec.
It's the way you want to start the morning, right?
That is the way. It's not, but you know, but it is, right? Give me 1 second. I'm going to just close out
And
everything.
then really quick while she's doing that, if our online audience can make sure that you are muted, because we did pick up a couple of people making some noise. So just double check and make sure you're muted.
Okay, I've closed everything out. I'm going to start sharing again. Let's see if this works this time. Are you seeing the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. 1 second. Go into presenter view. Still seeing the screen?
No.
Okay, give me 1 second. I know what I need to do. This has happened before. I'm sorry, I'm gonna leave and then come right back, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Guess we better let her in, huh?
Or it's low fee.
It just only goes to show you that sometimes even when you have a best laid plan, it just doesn't work, and that's okay. So no worries.
I think we've all learned patience through COVID.
Oh, yes.
Anything happens online, whereas before it would have been like a tragedy. Whereas
Yeah.
So with Zoom, the good thing is kind of going out and going back in Zoom. Literally, that fixes just about any random conversation.
Exactly. If not, we can watch it in this view.
Please tell me you're seeing it now.
No. So when you go to full screen like that, MiShon, we're not seeing it, but if you can leave it in the way that it was before you hit full screen, we can see that and just keep moving.
Yeah, the wonderful thing about that is I can't see my notes otherwise.
Oh, no.
I know, right? It's like, okay, this is wonderful. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna try one more thing. I apologize.
No need.
Well, it's really kind of interesting because I had your documents pulled up and ready to share with the online group.
You can go ahead and
And-
share that. can go ahead and share
Well,
that.
I can't get them to load.
Oh, wow.
So actually, you've helped me by stalling for me.
Okay, that's, yeah, wonderful day today.
I can get to them. They just are like, no, we're not moving.
That's so,
I have a quick question. Will the group chat be sent to us or the contact information?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it will.
So while she's on that, you will get the group chat. Are they getting the slides as well, though?
Yes, MiShon, hopefully we'll share the slides. You also will get the participant sheet that went out last night. Kimberly's trying to load those up into the chat. But if not, you can scroll back to that email that you got yesterday and it'll be there. Oh, it looks like we might be there, MiShon.
This is
I'm
where.
gonna try one more time. Is it working? Please tell me.
Yes,
Yay. All right. Sorry about that, y'all.
that's okay.
All right, let's move on. Thank you for attending today. So really quickly, we're going to cover a couple of things today. We're going to talk about prevalent issues. Got one quick slide I want to show about us. We're going to talk about what is imposter syndrome, because many times people don't really understand what it is. We're going to talk about different types of imposter syndrome and see perhaps which one you might identify with most, which it may be more than one, just so you know. And then we're going to talk about the psychology behind imposter syndrome, confidence versus self-esteem, because there is a difference, and then developing a framework for overcoming imposter syndrome, and the power of affirmations. And one thing I'm going to ask, were you able to get the handout to share?
Yes.
Okay, great. I know for
I'm
those.
sure with Kimberly though.
Okay. Well, and one of the things is this is a take-home handout. So it doesn't mean you have to do it right now. You can always go back and listen to the recording and, think about some of the things that we're sharing. The only thing I'm going to ask today that you do as we're talking is take away like 2 to 3 things from this, and really focus on something that will, inspire you to move to the next level and overcoming imposter syndrome, right? So thank you for sharing my bio. And this is the only slide that I'm going to share that really talks about MiShon. And the handout gives my full bio, but this is really who I am at the heart of every day. So on the left-hand side, you will see my family. My husband David is standing next to me. We have a daughter, Chelsea, 2 sons, Alex on the right, Ellis on the left, that's Millie. I always honor my son Ellis, who we lost in 2021 in an automobile accident, every time I talk, because he was instrumental in me starting my business. And so that is a way that I honor him and I remember him at the same time. David and I in the middle, that's our wedding picture at the very top, and then us a few years later. We have been married. It will be 35 years in June. And I always tell people that we got married at the age of 8 and it was an arranged marriage. But yeah. And then on the right-hand side, I'm a yaya, which is Greek for grandmother. And so those are my 2 love bugs, who are now, oh my gosh, 9 and 11. And then I have a bonus grandson as well. And then I am big on good food and good wine. So you see the picture of the food and wine in the corner. And I love taking pictures of anything beautiful. So I take lots of pictures of flowers. And those were actually taken in a restaurant. I took them in the bathroom of a restaurant. So whenever I see just something beautiful, I'm snapping a picture of it. And the others are just quotes that I love. So prevalence, I really kind of want to talk about and set the stage around imposter syndrome, and not spend a whole lot of time on this. But one of the things that you should know is that imposter syndrome was actually coined back in 1970 to describe feelings of like self-doubt and inadequacy. And it was often experienced by high achieving individuals, right? It's not a clinical diagnosis, but it has been studied many times in different populations across different disciplines, which include like STEM and education and business. And while it's not, again, an official diagnosis, which is listed in the Diagnosis and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Psychologists and others acknowledge it is very real and very specific form of intellectual self-doubt. And so we're going to talk a lot about how we can overcome this. Some other things to know is that imposter syndrome can occur across different age groups, different genders. So it's not just female specific. It is one of those who can happen across different ethnicities and demographics. And so it's one of those that, again, it can happen to a lot of people, and we're going to talk about some stats that go along with it. So imposter syndrome. One of the things to know is that more than 70% of people experience imposter syndrome. It's so crazy because, you know, imposter syndrome has a lot of names. Many times people are self-sabotaging themselves. It's people feeling like they have low self-confidence, having a fear of failure, a consistent fear of failure. Many times they're having internal struggles between achieving like success, right? And being found out. Like people are going to feel like you're a fraud and they're going to find out about you. Oftentimes there's a lot of anxiety that comes with feeling like a fraud, and people tend to lack self-confidence oftentimes. They have doubts about their abilities and their achievements, and they feel inadequate many times, and dwell on past mistakes, not feeling like they're good enough. And so a lot of times these feelings of inadequacy, you know, make up what is known as imposter syndrome. You're oftentimes not feeling like you deserve the success that you've achieved. And those who validate you, like they're lying to you. Many times you feel like you have happened to have good luck, or luck was an external force happening around you when you are having good things happen, or that mistakes are what got you this far. You may be a perfectionist or a procrastinator, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Or you have this need to be best, right? You're constantly comparing yourself to others. And so all of those things are evident with imposter syndrome. And just like it says here, you know, while it's more prevalent around women, it also includes men and those who are gender nonspecific. So it is one that happens to many, many people. I have a quick video that I want to share. I love TED Talks, and this is one from TED. So let me share that.
Even after writing 11 books and winning several prestigious awards, Maya Angelou couldn't escape the nagging doubt that she hadn't really earned her accomplishments. Albert Einstein experienced something similar. He described himself as an involuntary swindler whose work didn't deserve as much attention as it had received. Accomplishments at the level of Angelou's or Einstein's are rare, but their feeling of fraudulence is extremely common. Why can't so many of us shake feelings that we haven't earned our accomplishments, or that our ideas and skills aren't worthy of others' attention? Psychologist Pauline Rose Clance was the first to study this unwarranted sense of insecurity. In her work as a therapist, she noticed many of her undergraduate patients shared a concern. Though they had high grades, they didn't believe they deserved their spots at the university. Some even believed their acceptance had been an admissions error. While Clance knew these fears were unfounded, she could also remember feeling the exact same way in graduate school. She and her patients experienced something that goes by a number of names: imposter phenomenon, imposter experience, and imposter syndrome. Together with colleague Suzanne Imes, Clance first studied imposterism in female college students and faculty. Their work established pervasive feelings of fraudulence in this group. Since that first study, the same thing has been established across gender, race, age, and a huge range of occupations, though it may be more prevalent and disproportionately affect the experiences of underrepresented or disadvantaged groups. To call it a syndrome is to downplay how universal it is. It's not a disease or an abnormality, and it isn't necessarily tied to depression, anxiety, or self-esteem. Where do these feelings of fraudulence come from? People who are highly skilled or accomplished tend to think others are just as skilled. This can spiral into feelings that they don't deserve accolades and opportunities over other people. And as Angelou and Einstein experienced, there's often no threshold of accomplishment that puts these feelings to rest. Feelings of imposterism aren't restricted to highly skilled individuals either. Everyone is susceptible to a phenomenon known as pluralistic ignorance, where we each doubt ourselves privately, but believe we're alone in thinking that way because no one else voices their doubts. Since it's tough to really know how hard our peers work, how difficult they find certain tasks, or how much they doubt themselves, there's no easy way to dismiss feelings that we're less capable than the people around us. Intense feelings of imposterism can prevent people from sharing their great ideas or applying for jobs and programs where they'd excel. At least so far, the most surefire way to combat imposter syndrome is to talk about it. Many people suffering from imposter syndrome are afraid that if they ask about their performance, their fears will be confirmed. And even when they receive positive feedback, it often fails to ease feelings of fraudulence. But on the other hand, hearing that an advisor or mentor has experienced feelings of imposterism can help relieve those feelings. The same goes for peers. Even simply finding out there's a term for these feelings can be an incredible relief. Once you're aware of the phenomenon, you can combat your own imposter syndrome by collecting and revisiting positive feedback. One scientist who kept blaming herself for problems in her lab started to document the causes every time something went wrong. Eventually, she realized most of the problems came from equipment failure and came to recognize her own competence. We may never be able to banish these feelings entirely, but we can have open conversations about academic or professional challenges. With increasing awareness of how common these experiences are, perhaps we can feel freer to be frank about our feelings and build confidence in some simple truths. You have talent, you are capable, and you belong. Everyone can use a little extra kick of confidence sometimes. Find out some tips and tricks for boosting yours with this video.
So let's talk about different types of imposter syndrome. So there's what's known first as the perfectionist. And the perfectionist represents this person who has imposter syndrome. They're always striving to be their absolute best, no matter what their cost is to their mental health. And so they are constantly striving and striving and striving to do things perfect. Then there's the superwoman, superman syndrome, where people represent in a way where they often struggle with work addiction. So they go, 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 and they never stop. Then there's what's known as the natural genius. And the natural genius is this person who they struggle not only with perfectionism, but they also set out to achieve these very lofty goals on the first try. And then what happens is either when they don't achieve them, they feel like this sense of real sincere doubt, depression, anxiety. And then when they do achieve them, then what they're feeling is that, well, it was luck that helped me, or it wasn't validated in how I achieved those goals, right? Then there's the soloist. The soloist is a person who has extreme difficulties with asking others for help. There's the expert. The expert is one that never feels good enough despite being extremely knowledgeable. And then finally, this is me, the procrastinator. Procrastinator represents that person that responds with procrastination. Their initial response might be to turn into a frantic effort to complete something last minute on the job or in their work life, right? And then once the task has been completed, there's this brief period of relief or accomplishment, but then it goes back into a cycle. So just real quickly, I'd love for each of you just to think about which one of these, or could be one, could be more than one, that you identify with the most, because that's going to help us moving forward, right? I will tell you that, when the video came on and it talked about one of the best ways about overcoming imposter syndrome is really talking about it. And for me, I noticed that two of my friends are on, Jennifer Trevino with Leadership Fort Worth and Jody Newton with the Fort Worth Report. Both of those were very instrumental in when I started talking about imposter syndrome. Because as you can see on the right-hand side, or the left-hand side, I'm sorry, one of the times when I felt extreme imposter syndrome was when I was going through the City of Fort Worth process. And I discovered I was one of 6 finalists out of 350 candidates for their first ever Director of Diversity and Inclusion, right? And then it was narrowed down to 6, and I'm going through this process, and I had extreme imposter syndrome. At that same time, I was being awarded as the Great Women of Texas. And I sat on a panel with Jennifer. This is why I'm laughing, Jennifer Trevino. And my topic at the time, we were presenting at a women's leadership symposium. And I started out the conference with about 300 women in the room. And I said, hi, my name is MiShon, and I have imposter syndrome. Kind of like an AA, right? When you start off, my name is, but honestly, talking about it was so instrumental in me, right, beginning to overcome and understand, and even doing the research on it. A lot of the information that I'm going to share with you today came from that research that I did around imposter syndrome, because while I had heard of it, I wasn't really familiar with all of the ways that it can affect you. And so again, I've stood in the shoes of those of you who've had it, and I get it. I've had it for so long. But you saw in the video Albert Einstein, Maya Angelou. There are so many. I noticed so many other famous people that we know that also struggle with imposter syndrome. So you have J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez. You've got one of my favorite actors, Tom Hanks. Tom says, no matter what we've done, there comes to a point where you think, how did I get here? When are they going to discover that I am in fact a fraud and take everything away from me? I mean, Tom Hanks, come on. And then you've got the beautiful Serena Williams, who also struggles. She says that, there were 2 Venus Williams in her family. It was crazy. And so she says she was trying to be so much like her older sister, right? She says at restaurants, she would try and order the same thing from her that her sister ordered. And it was tough for her to stop comparing herself to her sister, and so she says in a lot of ways, she still copies what her sister does, but she's starting to realize, she says, I feel like I've been through some kind of 12-step program. And again, is one of those where, talking about it really does help. Another person that's we, all know is Lady Gaga. I still sometimes feel like a loser kid in high school, and I just have to pick myself up and tell myself that I'm a superstar every morning, that I can get through this day and be there for my fans and what they need, right? And so again, I have like 12 other slides like this, you all, just so you know that there are so many people that we recognize, like in big screen or media or film or radio, that have imposter syndrome. But let's talk about a few ways, right, to overcome imposter syndrome. And they talked about it in the video. But one of the things that the APA, the American Psychological Association, and the Harvard Business Review talk about as far as resources on strategies on overcoming it is basically beginning to talk to a trusted person or a mentor, right, about it, right? Acknowledging that your wins and capabilities are valid, and that, your accomplishments are those that you have done, and being aware of not only those, but admitting sometimes that you may not know everything, right? And being aware of your limitations, right? And then we'll talk about, again, some more things in specific, but I just want to, really just kind of share with you some of these tips. So let's talk about how you can get out of your own way, right? So one of the things that you can start to do to overcome imposter syndrome is get out of the I can't mode of thinking, right? Knowing that perfection is not one that really exists. We know that there's nothing perfect. So letting go of this need to always be the absolute perfect thing, because there's no perfect. Don't obsess so much over things, right? Knowing that if it's not perfect, it's okay, right? Sometimes good is just, it's good enough, and knowing when that happens, forgiving yourself for mistakes, even when they happen, that's going to be important. I talked about breaking the silence and how anytime shame keeps a lot of people from fessing up about their fraudulent feelings, you will find that more people probably experience this more than you realize, but it's something that we don't talk about. And because we don't talk about, we don't know, right? Begin to acknowledge that you've had some success in your role, right? In the way that you've done things. Acknowledge the fact that many times you said yes when you could have said no to something, right? And, even more so, know that, reward yourself for when you've done a great job, right? Separate feelings from facts. That's so important. And know that, at times we're going to all feel a little off. We're going to all feel like, you know what, that may have not been the best decision. But at the end of the day, realize that's just part of life, right? And we all learn and have the opportunity to learn from the mistakes that we make. And, don't kick yourself over feeling like maybe that was a dumb mistake, or I feel, not maybe so smart and feel stupid about. Don't kick yourself and beat yourself up over that. Another thing that you can do, and this is one of my favorite things, is get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Many times we tend to do things over and over and over. And oftentimes getting out of that comfort zone can challenge you in new ways, right? So begin to take risk and challenge yourself with doing uncomfortable things. May start with just trying a new type of food, right? Exploring a new type of activity, right? Maybe exploring a different type of social setting, something different, right? And I talk a lot about unconscious bias. And so one of those ways that you can also get uncomfortable or get comfortable with being uncomfortable is reflecting on your own biases and understanding what those are and making sure that you're sharing facts and seeking to understand. When it comes to fear, we all have them, but one of my favorite things is about doing it afraid and doing it anyway. Fear has so many different facets and wears so many different faces, and I say hats, from the fear of failure. And so these feelings that we might have of inadequacy, or maybe a fear of rejection, or the fear of the unknown, or the fear of maybe financial insecurity, whatever it is, right? If we don't recognize and deal with it, it'll hinder us from embracing life that we were intended to live. And if we allow it, fear will prevent us from fulfilling our passion and our highest purpose. So, get out of your own way, do it afraid, do it anyway. When I think about another way that we can overcome imposter syndrome, it's thinking about what words are producing negative results in your life. Many times when we are younger, we've heard people say things to us, and then those things begin to take root. And before we know it, as adults, we're thinking those same thoughts, right? And we are believing those things that were said about us when we're younger. And so that kind of negative thinking many times can be painful many times. And our brains respond to that, right? That's actually called implicit process. And so I'm not going to get into the psychology behind that today, but one of the things to know is that negative words can produce stress and anxiety hormones. And so one of the things that you can do to counteract negative talk is to begin to have positive self-talk, right? And so that is going to be an important thing, because the power of positive thoughts and power of positive self-talk is so important. Words like love and joy and peace have profound impact on our emotions, and they can boost our moods. And there's like a lot of science behind this. Again, this is 40 minutes, so I'm not going to get into a lot of it, but begin to choose words that matter and have positive thoughts and speech, because it not only affects your brain and the way it shapes your thinking, but it begins to also shape the world outside of us, as well as your inner world, right? Your body and your mind. So embrace that. Talking about reframing your thoughts, recognize your patterns of thinking. My thing is, do you always think about negative thoughts first? And if you do, begin to change that, right? And instead of thinking about a negative thought, how can you reframe your brain so that you're thinking about a positive thought? check for evidence and ask yourself, what is the evidence behind my thinking? Is my evidence actually showing factual information, right? For those of you who are very scientific, you can think about it from that way. How can I find out even if my thoughts are true? And then challenge your thoughts. One of the things that I always say is, what is the best thing that could happen instead of what is the worst thing that could happen? Or what is the most likely thing that would happen, right? And then reframe that thinking in terms of, if it's negative, were you thinking, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? No, what's the best thing that could happen, right? And you can see here on the slide, it talks about instead of thinking. So instead of saying, uh-oh, I'm sorry. Someone needs to mute. But instead of thinking, I'm not good enough, think about I am good enough. Or instead of I can't do this, I can, right? So reframe the negative thinking. The other part of this is around confidence. Confidence is a skill and ability, but one of the things that I also say is confidence doesn't equal competence. So remember that. Confidence comes from knowledge, it comes from practice. The more experience that you have the more confident that you are, right? And you'll become. So self-confidence is one of those where you're trusting yourself, you're trusting your abilities, you are looking at new challenges, you're looking at the task ahead and opportunities, and your self-confidence can really lead to more successful experiences and opportunities. You can further build self-confidence in areas. Self-esteem is one of those where it's not necessarily about how you feel about yourself. I'm sorry, it is about how you feel about yourself. It's about your value, it's about your worth. And the more that you recognize that, it helps you establish how you think, right? And so when you think about self-esteem being based on relationships, being based on people that we surround ourselves with, when you surround yourself around people who are positive, around people who perhaps push you to learn more, push you to new opportunities, push you to better things, like the more of that you do, the better that you are, right? There's also the accountability factor, right? And so when we have, for example, an accountability partner, right? Science has proven that when you have an accountability partner, you are 65% more likely to achieve your goals if you commit those with someone. If you have I'm trying to think, my brain just went frozen, sorry. If you have a goal and you have perhaps another person who will hold you accountable, you can achieve even more success by doing this. I mean, and it's about committing to it, right? Another thing about accountability, I will say, is when you become accountable for many times your own shortcomings and you don't magnify them, you don't explode them, but you are beginning to develop them, develop imposter syndrome. I'm sorry. When you become accountable for your own shortcomings, don't magnify them by developing imposter syndrome. You actually give yourself a chance to succeed, right? Your resilience gained through self-compassion allows you to learn from your mistakes, allows you to evolve, it allows you to become more successful. There's also a coach, mentor, and sponsor. This is in your handout. And so, and again, for those of you who are business owners, many times you have employees where you have to coach. If you are a business owner or perhaps in a role where you need a mentor, that is something that is important to have. And, when you think about different roles, a coach is a person who basically helps you solve your problems by asking the right questions, sometimes difficult questions. They're help you improve a skill, maybe help you get past the bottleneck. Oftentimes when you have a coach, they're they're helping you to be more holistic, in all areas of your life. While when you have a mentor, a mentor is one of those where it's someone who you trust, that you draw their experiences, you draw their best practices for answers, gain perspectives, right? They're there and they're vested oftentimes in your life, right? And they naturally want to help you. Sometimes they're people within your organizations, but sometimes they're people outside of your organizations. And you help cultivate these relationships with them so that long after you've perhaps even years later, you still have that bond with that mentor, right? Whereas a sponsor is someone, as it says here, who talks about you, someone who's talking about you in different rooms. And so they're a person of influence and many times can get you into different roles or positions or even opportunities that you never even imagined because you have the sponsor. One of the things that's true of mentors and sponsors, and these are some stats, is that 42% of women say that they lack a mentor or a sponsor, and that this is one of the number one obstacles to their professional development. And so that is so important to think about. So, if you don't have a mentor, you don't have a sponsor, really seek those out, seek those relationships out, because at the end of the day, those mentors again support you in that face-to-face where an advocate sponsor can be your advocate behind your back. One of the other things that I always talk about is the power of words. I have this really quick quote that I wrote. I'm going to just share it with you. It says, our words have the power to change people's lives, power to motivate or to tear people down, power to inspire or kill a dream, the power to cause vision to realize, power to make someone believe that they can conquer the world, the power to give confidence to a weary soul. Our words are one of the most powerful tools that we can use. So what are you doing with your words? Often we playfully say things about others and to our loved ones, and then before you know it, those words have taken root. This happens because we have sown the seeds of negativity and discouragement. We see the outcomes in our failed relationships that we have with others. And when we consider and define the root cause of why we exhibit this egoistic behavior, often we can begin to disarm our walls of defense. Do you want to make a change in your life and in the life of someone else? Begin by speaking words of positivity, encouragement, and hope. If you tend to start a conversation off criticizing others, stop it. Or if you frequently look for the negative before you see the good, begin to change your perspective. Make a solid effort not to fall into the same patterns of the past. Start by catching yourself speaking words that are positive. The more you become aware that you are using this method, the more likely you will be to continue this positive trend. And before you know it, you will begin to see changes in those around you, and most importantly, in yourself. Remember, words are very powerful tools that we must be entrusted to use wisely and honorably. And then words have power. And then I talked about at the beginning, power of affirmations. Affirmations are statements that we say to ourselves that can shift our mindset, make us feel better about ourselves. And the success of positive daily affirmations are believed to have origins in neuroscience, which explores the structure, function of the nervous system. So through repetition of framing and affirming statements, the brain can form these neural pathways, which create physical connections to these thoughts. And so it's like a type of positive self-talk, but affirmations can help you to alter subconscious thoughts. Research has shown that if we hear something often enough, then we'll begin to believe it. So I say start today by reaffirming positivity back into your life and helping to regain and increase self-assurance. And so the power of affirmations is that I believe in. Let me just say this really quickly. I'm going to go back real quick. I have these affirmation cards we're gonna really quickly talk about. But if you're interested in getting an affirmation card, I'll have a QR code that you can scan, and I'll be happy to share that with you. I started doing affirmations back in 2016. And so I do weekly affirmations, but one of the things that affirmations have done for me really helped me to shift my mindset around a lot of things. And so again, I love this one. I will do more than just eat, drink, sleep, and hit repeat. I'll live my purpose. And I feel like, you know, this affirmation, along with many others, has really catapulted my own life. I've done a workshop on affirmations, and so these are 6 that I love talking about. There's one around self-love. And so self-love is about having a high regard for your own well-being, your own happiness. Self-love means taking care of your own needs and not sacrificing your well-being with others. Self-love means not settling for less than you deserve. And so with the self-love card, it looks, I don't have it right in front of me, I think, self-trust, but it's like, today I will give myself space to, and then you write it on the card what you will do, right? On self-trust, self-trust means constantly and consistently staying true to yourself. It's at its very core, trusting yourself means that you're looking after your own needs, your own safety. You treat yourself with love and compassion rather than striving for perfection. And you know deep down that you can survive difficulties and refuse to give up on yourself. And so with the self-trust card, it says, I trust myself because, and you fill it out. And then there's the wellness card. And with the wellness, it is the act of practicing healthy habits on a daily basis to attain either the better physical and or mental outcome, so that instead of just surviving, you're thriving. And you know, I always think about health versus wellness. Health is the state of complete physical, mental, social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Wellness is an active process through which people become aware of and make choices for a more successful existence. And then finally, with wellness, I will listen to my body when, and you fill the part out. And then letting go. When I think about letting go creates space for new opportunities. And so letting go may mean not continue to hold on to something, or to stop thinking about or being angry about the past. Maybe it's about being more relaxed than usual and enjoying yourself. And so when you think about accepting yourself unconditionally, while it might be counterintuitive, the first step in letting go of anything is to accept where you are right now. And so with the letting go card, it will be, I will stop worrying about. And then the final and last card, I think, is about capability. And so when capability, the power or ability to do something, capability versus ability. Capability and ability have very similar meanings, but capability is often associated with a particular competency or efficiency at any specific task. The ability is more basic and often means the capacity to do something regardless of quality. And so I think about this capability quote. This man often becomes what he believes himself to be. If I keep on saying to myself that I cannot do a certain thing, it is possible that I may not end by really becoming it. On the contrary, if I have the belief that I can do it, I shall surely acquire the capacity to do it, even if I may not have it at the beginning. And so when I look at capability and I think about it, you know, it's one of those where, again, think about, you know, what aspect of capability that you may be interested in, and then say, I will achieve my goal because, and then that happens. And then here is the QR code where you can contact me. And if you'd like to get one of these cards, contact me and I can send that to you. And then the final slide, I'm going to give you just a minute. And I did put my information in the chat also, so pick up with me in the chat. And then the final slide that I have is due to repeated feelings of inadequacy. A person who struggles with imposter syndrome can also oftentimes develop other mental health conditions. So definitely seek help if you need it, because negative feelings can lead to anxiety or depression associated with imposter syndrome. And if this is the case, you'll want to definitely. So with that, I am going to stop sharing. And I have one more slide, which is my how to contact me slide. So I'm on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Yeah, and again, my information is in the chat. And I'm gonna open it up for Q&A. For anyone.
Right. Kimberly, do we have any questions online?
Yes, we did have one that asked, so many screen problems today. Um, how do you react when imposter syndrome comes from biases that other people have, whether it has to do with race, culture, ageism, where you don't normally feel imposter syndrome, but that bias that you're receiving springs it on?
Yeah, so one of the things, and again, this is a very brief training session. I actually do longer sessions around this. But one of the things that we get into is around bias and microaggressions that can show up, assumptions that happen around imposter syndrome. And we talk about like recognizing your own bias, right? And ways that you can do that. One of the things that I share oftentimes with individuals, because they're like, how do I begin to recognize my own bias? How do I even start that, right? Well, one of the things that you can do is take the Harvard implicit association test. The Harvard implicit association test is a series of different tests around gender, race, bias. There's even like political one, right? Because we know there's bias there, but you can take a test and it can help you determining what your biases are, right? For me, I've taken several of the tests and I know that I am all about go women, right? But I also recognize that I have men on my team. And so I have to really take a look at my bias and take a step back, because when it comes to opportunities or stretch assignments, my bias tends to go toward women. And so, which is not a bad thing, but it would work against some of the men on my team if I'm not aware of it, right? And so being aware of your own biases and beginning to temper those is important. As far as other people and how do you deal with individuals may show up with microaggressions or with bias, like one of the things that you can say to those individuals, and quite honestly, I talk about it all the time, is tell me more about what you mean about it, right? Ask them that question, right? It's interesting what people will do when you question them a little bit further, right? And make them stop and think about some of the comments that they said. Tell me more about what you mean when you say that, right? So that's one way. I hope I answered that question. And if I didn't, please let me know.
Awesome, thank you. Do we have any questions in the room? Michelle?
I have a question about the coach, mentor, sponsor, and accountability advocate. Coach, mentors, and sponsors, I think of as a paid, there's a financial exchange. How do you find a free group of similar-minded people for accountability partners?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, I mean, accountability can be a good friend. You can reach out to a good friend for accountability, or if you're in business or if you're a student, you can reach out to a colleague and say, hey, this is what I am wanting to achieve and I need an accountability partner. Obviously it would have to be someone you feel that you could trust, and also someone who you could be vulnerable, to be honest with you, many times, right? But many times there are people who are right around the corner from us, right? But it doesn't have to be. It could be someone who's in another state and you're just having these ongoing communications with them, because you're saying, hey, you know what, I'm just going to use this hypothetical. I want to achieve, I'm going to just say walking, walking every day, or walking, for 30 minutes a day. You could have a text going with you and that person. Did I walk every day? Yes, I walked for 25 minutes today, that you're being honest, right? Or the next day you're walking for 45 minutes. You don't have to talk to them every day. You're just having that accountability. But that person's going to understand that if you don't text like you said you would, then they're going to reach out to you and say, hey, what did you do today? Or what happened, right? So I think your accountability partners can be right around the corner from you. As far as like the mentoring and the financial piece, I mean, if you're in business, there are a lot of resources that are available to you for mentoring that are not cost related. For example, if you're in business, there's SCORE that provides free mentoring for those in business. And so there's a tool there. And there are others also that can be available.
Yeah, and we also have Christina Mortel, our own business advisor. She's an awesome resource for that kind of thing as well. Kimberly, do we have time for one more question online? Do we have any more?
Yes, a lot of people asking if you will, one, share your QR code and rituals or mantras that you recite to yourself.
Yes. So I will reshare my QR code. I'll do this. I'll put my link in the chat. I think that'll probably be more effective because there's a lot in the chat. So
we're going to send her presentation out. We'll also make sure that all of that information is inside of the resources thing that goes out. So don't fret, it will be there for you.
Okay. There's that again though. So for me, I'm going to be really honest and very truthful here. A lot of the things that I did several years ago in overcoming imposter syndrome has shifted for me after losing my son, right? And so my wellness and getting through the grief of that has been so instrumental for me in my personal life. And so for me, things that I used to do 3 years ago have changed dramatically, right? So now I do a lot of writing. That has been good therapy for me during my healing process. And then I have a crazy, but I have a birthday affirmation that I did many years ago. And while I don't do it every day, I do still practice it. And then I just started this year at the beginning of the year doing my weekly affirmations. And I do them I post them on my social media platform. So LinkedIn and Facebook and things of that nature. So I do those as well.
Awesome.
I hope that answers.
Any last questions in our in-person? Awesome. Well, thank you, MiShon. We appreciate this so much. I'm sure everybody found your tips and everything that you shared very helpful. Just a few housekeeping announcements really quick. So we do have our Veteran Women Entrepreneur Grant is open now. And if you are not a veteran woman, but you know a veteran woman entrepreneur that would benefit from a $5,000 grant, we would kindly ask that you would share that with them. In addition to that, we have our first quarter special evening event, which is February 29th from 6 to 7. It's a Thursday night. It's Branding Your Business on Video with Jane McGarry. She is on the WFAA, I think it's Texas Morning Show. So she will be on doing that. And then our March WomenRISE is March 12th, and we have HR 101 for entrepreneurs. We've had a lot of you asking different questions about HR and building your team and all of those pieces and parts. So we want to make sure that we get that to you. So we will have Michelle Jolvet from DE&I Recruiting and HR Consulting for that. And so, Kimberly, we just thank everybody for coming. Tracy, do you want to say any
Yes.
less? Yep.
Well, I just want to say thank you, MiShon. That was such great information.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And one of the things I will just say honestly is go back and listen to this again, because even when you listen to it a second time, you'll hear something that you didn't hear the first time. So that's my advice, because you'll be like, oh, I didn't even pick up on that. That's just always how it, right? So, but thank you for having me.
You bet. And again, Donna Lisa is going to send out the video, everything else out to you.
Yep. All right. So without further ado, we're going to, let me go ahead and stop our live on Facebook. Stop